Guys, I'm speaking directly to you. In this situation, what exactly would you do if you did find out that that child was not yours?
How can a man walk away from a child that he has been raising for 3, 5, 10, 15 years simply because the DNA test shows that he's not the biological father? Hear me out here. I'm not being insensitive. I know that his world has just been turned upside down. I know he feels betrayed. He's devastated. I empathize. I sympathize with his predicament. However, how is one able to walk away from a child that one has bonded with, loved, nurtured, poured blood and sweat into, simply because the DNA test shows that you're not the biological father? I understand getting rid of the wife or the girlfriend. The word I actually want to use starts with a W and rhymes with sure. Get rid of the W. But the children or the child, the innocent child, it is flummoxing to me. Now, I'm not a man and I do not know how this impacts men. I also know that there's deep shame. But were I in that predicament, of course I would be devastated. I'd be hurt and betrayed. But then I'd let the children know or the child know. You may not be my biological child, but you're still my child. I love you. You're my child in my heart. I've bonded with you. I've raised you. So nothing changes. Now, I know a lot of men worry about, then I have to continue paying I have to pay child support now that we're not together. So what? I'd pay the child support. Because you know what? Even though everything has changed, nothing should have changed because it's still the child that I raised, bonded with, and loved. And in an attempt not to pay child support, one ends up cutting off one's nose to spite one's face. Because you got to look at the big picture, the relationship with that child, the continued relationship, and the ability to go ahead and raise and nurture that child because you already have that bonded relationship. But once again, because I'm not a man, I do not understand how anybody can walk away from a child. Story time. My husband had a boss about 20 years ago. This gentleman's son had some medical issues. And to make a long story short, he found out that his 19-year-old son was not his biological child. Needless to say, he was devastated. But you know what? He had raised this child for 19 years, was paying for college. This was his son, and he was not going to let him go. And my heart broke for him, but I was so proud of this man because he did not walk away from his child. And I think at times some men might think walking away from the child is a way to punish the woman for her betrayal. But at the end of the day, the person you're hurting is the child. And I can't help but wonder, won't you be traumatized as a person walking away from someone that you've bonded with, that you've loved? For the man, isn't that traumatic? I mean, I really do not understand. I just cannot relate. And once again, I'm not a man. I'm sensitive to the hurt, to the pain, to the betrayal. But is it right to walk away from a child you've bonded with simply because the DNA test shows that you're not the biological father? Food for thought. Talk to you later.
She sounds very compelling. She sounds very convincing. And just my take on this, it would be pretty much to say that I disagree with a lot of things that she said. And I feel like it's not fair for that man to still continue on that journey despite the fact that that child is not his. I feel like a lot of females have been pulling the veil over us men's face to make us believe one thing when it's not. A lot of females been hiding the truth, even though they know for themselves who that father may be. A lot of females pretty much take these things to their grave, so to speak, right? You know, it's kind of hard because I know most men are kids are kind of a man's soft spot in life, right? We tend to do things in regards to the sake of the child and all this other stuff. But when it comes to this situation, I don't know. I really do disagree. I'm gonna turn it over to you, and then I'll probably come up with some more things.
I could kind of definitely, not even kind of, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. Because, first of all, right, the best way to describe the situation is to draw the perfect picture. All right? So let's take it there. Imagine your girl, wife, is pregnant, right? And throughout the pregnancy, you're super excited, you're stoked, and all that good stuff. You know, as you're there, you're watching the belly as it grows, right, so to speak. You're reading books to the stomach. You're rubbing on the belly like a crystal ball.
You're kissing and rubbing on.
You're excited. You're like, listen, my boy or my daughter's about to be here in XYZ amount of time.
Correct.
Right? And even if you're nervous, let's hypothetically say it's your first child, you're nervous, but you're still super excited, right? You're planning, you're doing all this stuff, can't wait for the child to get here. You tell your family, you have the baby shower, everybody's congratulating you, and all this stuff. But the irony is, your significant other, whether it be your girlfriend, fiance, or wife, she knows that the baby is not yours. You think you know this person that you're with, but obviously you don't know who you're with because it's not your child. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, it could happen at any age, right? You find out that the child is not yours. Do I think you should sit that one out and stay with the mother? No. I'm sorry. No. Because
not even the animals in the wild.
Right, exactly.
Take care of a child that's not theirs.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that a man should stay with a woman when the woman deceived you. You know what I'm saying? She had you thinking that this child was yours when the child in fact is not yours.
Right.
Now here's the thing. This young lady, she brought up betrayal. You know what I'm saying? She says that she understands the man is going to feel betrayal. Betrayal is the least of it.
Of course.
You're going to feel like crap.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel like, something psychologically, I can't trust another female.
Yeah. 9 months.
And that's the clean version of it.
9 months of crap.
Right. I can't trust another female.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you know what I'm saying? Like, not even bringing in the financial part into the situation.
Right, because
child support and everything else.
So what? Just pay the child support. Just pay whatever.
And it's not so what? Just pay anything. Because here's the thing: if you take on that responsibility, and later down the line, even if you change your mind, in some states the court is still your responsibility.
Yep.
And we have to understand that. Why are we putting ourselves in a position to get stuck when we don't have to get, to have to be stuck, so to speak?
Correct.
Not to mention, what about if this child decides that him or her wants to know who their biological father is? I'm going to tell you the story that I heard about a year ago. And it was, to me, she talks about flummoxing. No, this story is very perplexed, okay? This man, he gets with a woman. The kid was really small when he got with her. It's a girl, by the way. And he raised her as his own from the time she was a little toddler up until she was literally time to get married. And the guy has, at that point in time, he moved them in. He showed them a better life. He gave them a better life. And they're in the house and everything, and they're enjoying themselves, and suddenly it's, time to plan for her wedding, because at this time, I think she was like 20 something.
Correct.
And out of nowhere, she says, as they're doing the invitation list, I can't wait to tell my dad. I can't wait to invite my dad to my wedding and have him walk me down the aisle.
Yeah, she wanted the dad,
man was like the
biological dad.
She wanted the biological dad to work her down the aisle.
To play the whole part of it.
Keep in mind, this man has never been in the picture.
Correct, yeah.
So,
the stepdad must pay for everything, while the real dad, take the lead.
Not to mention, the stepdad was the one that was paying for everything.
Yes.
On top of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you say to yourself, you do all of that for what purpose? And then, long story short, I'm going to give you the ending to the story. He was like, you know something? You're just as ungrateful as your mother. Everybody get the hell out of my house. I ain't paying for shit.
Yeah.
And now keep in mind, the wedding would have been like a week later. So you have the guests. And the crazy thing was, their house was so big, they were going to actually have the wedding at the house.
Yes.
Right? In the backyard.
Yes.
And he said, you know what? Everybody, pack your stuff, get out. There's no more wedding. I don't care where you have it. In fact, have it at your biological dad's house. And I agree with him 110%.
Right.
Because how dare you? What ticked him off even more was the fact that the mom never stepped in and said anything.
Right.
She defended it.
She never objected.
So it was giving, dang, this woman that I've been with for so many decades, along with her daughter, used the crap out of me.
Oh yeah.
They totally used this man.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Back to what this young lady said in the video. She think that the man should still assume responsibility
Regardless
of payment
of
and financial support. For what? Where's the dad? Where's the biological dad? A lot of times women want their cake and eat it too. And sometimes men have to allow women to choke on the cake. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Metaphorically speaking.
Choke on that dry cake.
You want your cake and eat it too? Well, here's what we're gonna do. How about you choke on the cake? Because you have to understand, a lot of times women, the stuff that women do to men couldn't do to women. Because women are supposedly these emotional creatures.
I like that.
And they're always ready to, how dare you embarrass me? How dare you do
Reverse
this? How
it.
dare you do that?
Reverse
Right?
the blame.
And they hit you with the guilt trip. But why is it when women do things onto men, they're not held liable or accountable? And it's disgusting at this juncture. I understand where this lady's coming from. She kept saying that, she can't fathom certain things because she's not a man, obviously, right? Evidently.
Correct.
But to be honest with you, it's not even about being a man or a woman or trying to put yourself or interject yourself into a man or a woman's shoes. It's all about what's wrong and right.
Yeah.
If you would not want, if you flip the script, this is what I do. You say to yourself, does this make sense? How would I feel if XYZ was to do this to me? How would I feel if my husband was to do this to me? And a lot of women need to start doing that. If you can't put yourself into like as I just said, into a person's shoes, then damn it. All you have to say to yourself is what I'm doing correct? Is it right? Because a lot of times if you're doing something right, you wouldn't have to sneak and do it.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You would just do it in front of the person's face.
You would do it right there.
Okay? Secondly, like I said before, all you have to do is simply say, something, how would I feel if this was done to me?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Could you handle it?
That's
you know
it.
What I mean?
Me, I'm able to think from both perspectives. I could kind of interject myself and just figure things out that way. But not everybody could do that.
Right.
And it's okay.
To deceive somebody for so long and then turn around and throw the full responsibility on that person. You have to understand that this person is not only selfish,
right,
but they have very little love for that. That, you know what I'm saying, for that person, because what you're about to do to that person can totally destroy him
in so many different ways.
To the point where he just, like my wife said, give up on just every relationship that he comes across again. Now, this particular woman, she's the only thing that she's concerned of is to complete her agenda and to take all the blame, all the responsibility, and throw it that way. And then when he starts to mess up and don't do things accordingly, she's not blaming the baby's father, she's blaming him.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
No assume responsibility. It's ridiculous.
It's kind of weird, but it's a reverse psychological thing that females would do in order for them not to assume guilt of their action.
Right.
Nobody's gonna be hurting that child, and I know she mentioned that the father would be hurting, not the father, but the stepdad would be hurting the child if he walks away from the child. At this point, the only person that's gonna be hurting that child is
the mom.
you,
Yes.
the mother, because you were the one who brought that child into that new circle, expecting that man was going to take over full responsibility,
knowing that you're doing something wrong, knowing that you're carrying somebody else's child. I mean, this is not rocket science. This is as easy as it gets to figure out. Now, it's up to the individual whether or not if they want to stay. But even if you do decide to stay, can you ever trust this person again?
No, you cannot.
You know what I'm saying?
You cannot.
And I honestly feel like they should make paternity or
mandatory.
Yes, paternity testing should definitely be mandatory, because a woman always knows whether or not if it's a vaginal birth or a C-section, whether or not if a child is hers. It's always the dad that's left out there. And even when it comes down to feature characteristics, you can't even go along with that either, because people look alike and they're not even related.
Correct, yeah.
So like I said, it should be mandatory, and women who honestly go out there and create problems and, they know for a fact that the child is not the man's child, but yet, however, they still put it on that man and they give them hell and they
Yeah.
run them up and down to child support. There should be some type of penalization
For them.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
Either making them pay back the money,
Yes.
a month in jail, something. But it definitely has to stop. It's not good. It's not healthy. And I understand what she's saying. How could one walk away from a bond that was
Easy.
created? Listen to
Very
me.
easy.
The same way the mom was able to walk away from the bond that her and the man had and
Yes.
ended up sleeping with somebody else.
Yes. Very
It's
easy.
not that hard. You know what I'm saying?
Don't put the guilt trip on
how
that
can
man.
you look at that child the same? How can you even, like she said, walk away from the mother? Because the lady is now considered, in her words, it starts with W, ends with
Correct.
shore,
Correct.
or rhymes with shore rather.
Correct.
And it's like, okay, how are you going to get this child from the woman if the child is in the woman's custody anyway?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Walk away from the woman. She's going to be like, you ain't going to get my child. And then she's going to give you pure hell because now psychologically she might not be all there.
Mm-hmm.
And emotionally she's already distraught because even though she did you wrong, she's looking at it like, how the hell, how dare you leave me? So now she uses this child that's not even yours as a pawn. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to see my child, you got to see me. You got to go through me. Don't nobody need the stress.
Correct.
Okay? You don't need the stress. And even if she does allow you to see the child, it's probably just to use you anyway.
Yeah,
How
to
much you can
get
spend on the
whatever.
child and so on and
Exactly.
so forth. No matter which way you turn the situation, it's a messy situation. So I wouldn't.
And
Listen,
I've seen.
I
I've
can't see
seen-
myself doing it.
I've seen
personally.
situation where there's a custody, right? Not custody, but there's a visitation order. So the dad comes to take his child out for the day. You know, he might take him to go get something to eat, whatever the case may be, buy clothes, whatever the case may be. When the dad returns back to dropping that child off, the mother expect that he was supposed to buy for her other
yes,
kids
that
inside
went
of the
viral.
household.
That went viral.
And you know, it did went viral because
Yes.
how dare you?
How dare you bring
How
your
dare
kid
you? And that's
McDonald's
what
and
she
you didn't bring
said.
my other kids nothing to eat? Well, miss, it's optional.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's not his kids. Third, how the hell do you know whether or not if this man has money to fund all your kids?
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? It's just so crazy. I mean,
And she went in on him,
yes.
making him feel like it was something
Mm-hmm.
wrong for him not to feed the rest of the kids that was in the household.
Oh man,
I don't understand why females do these things, but I hope that someday that that females who do this
crazy.
come to some sort of grip with themselves and start to really fact check yourself. Take that accountability. Stop being conniving. Stop doing these things because you have a lot of men out here who are just very at the edge of their festivity.
Right.
Right? And
speaking of-
they're just waiting for that one more female to try that one more
Yes.
thing. And
Yes.
can you blame that man if he goes off on you for doing something like that?
Right.
Because you got away with it with other men that you dealt with?
And just one quick thing, right? I know she says to maintain the bond with the child and so on and so forth. Let me tell you something. People, especially in this day and age, they're not all mentally stable because
No,
they
you
have a
can't
lot to
trust
deal
anybody.
with. Who's not dealing with the stress and struggles of health? They're dealing with
Right.
the economy and just some people just they don't have a lot of patience.
Correct.
And sometimes you really have to analyze what it is that people are saying, right? Take everything that somebody says as with a grain of salt. Here it is, this lady is saying to continue the bond with the child. Just supposedly, right? You continue the bond with the child. And the mother is like, yeah, sure, take Shorty with you, whether it be a boy or
Yeah.
a girl. Take him for
Take
the
him
day,
out for the
take
day,
her for
whatever.
the day, whatever.
Mhm.
And the worst thing possible happened where this man either hurts this child. I don't even have to go into details. Just
You
use
guys
your
kind of
imagination.
understand where we're going with this, right?
Now what happens? Because it seemed like he was forgiving during the time.
Or he was understanding. to
Or he was
the fact.
understanding. And he's a good person. He understands it.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, everything just boils up. And then he just
And he
mentally
really-
have a mental
A
breakdown.
breakdown.
He loses it.
Because he would realize right
Yes.
then and there that I'm being played. We've
But-
seen many videos like that, right?
Yeah, it's so,
Where
yeah.
the guy is actually, he was a truck driver and he came home early unknowing to the female and he came in there and the baby father was laying in the bed sleeping with the mother, right?
While he's playing daddy.
While he's paying all the bills in the house.
Yes.
Playing the daddy role, showing her that he can do what he got to do and he could be the man and he could provide and all this other stuff. Every time he disappeared, the other dude came in and until they got caught.
It's so many situations where like things could go wrong, right? If the child is yours, you know for a fact the child is yours, hold on to your child. Okay? You did wrong, accept the fact that you did wrong, try to correct your sin.
Don't place nobody with your child.
Try to correct it and do better the next time around. But to give your child to somebody that you're no longer, in my opinion, connected to is bad business. Because if anything happens to your child, if you really do care about your child, you're going to feel like crap. You know, but that's all we have to say about this video. I thought it was pretty cool. We actually saw Anton Daniels reacting to it. And I'm like, you know what? We have to react to this too, because this right here is, you know, this is crazy.
It's just one of those topics that you just can't see it and leave it alone.
And it happens so often because you hear about these things that happen so often. Hence the fact Maury Povich wouldn't have a show if these type of things wasn't happening, right?
Exactly.
Because if you know, like we know.
Shout out to Maury, by the way.
Exactly. If you know, like we know, Maury started out way back when, but it didn't really. I mean, his show was great, but it became even greater once he introduced the paternity testing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That segment was crazy.